meaning who I am, to ask this question. This question is regarded in mysticism as one of the great questions. That the real mystery you have to probe is your own.
Why knowledge matters. Professor Arvind Sharma, it's such a pleasure to finally meet you in person. Actually, it's our very second time. I have fond memory of the last time we met here in this office, and it's always a pleasure because it is very special talking to you in person. You're such a wise man, and when I ask you a question when you were talking privately, it just shows me like the repertoire that you have. Like it's almost like walking into a library of life. That's how it feels being in your office and talking to you in person. So welcome back. It's such a pleasure to finally have an episode in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Yannick, and also for the kind words. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
You wrote a book, Christianity for Hindus. And now, of course, this begs the questions. Why writing a book for Hindus about Christianity?
There are a couple of reasons. One is a very general reason, that one should encourage religious literacy. People should know about each other's religions. The reason for that is that when we do not know or have enough knowledge about other religions, then it is not the case that we have a blank slate. You might imagine that because we don't know about what Islam is or Hinduism is, we have a clean slate about what they are, on which you can ascribe true knowledge. This is usually not the case, because whenever the name of a religion is taken, a certain image of that religion forms in your mind. And if it is not based on solid facts, then that image will be colored by what you have heard about that religion, what others have said about it, rather than what it is. So that is why I think we should care deeply about religious literacy. So this is one reason. The other reason is that although Hinduism is a very tolerant religion in many, especially theologically, it may have had the unfortunate effect of inhibiting one's curiosity about other religions. Yeah, we accept them. And you stop at that. What do they believe in? What do they say? So we should not allow our tolerance of other religions slide into ignorance of those religions, howsoever benign. A third reason I would urge is that because Hindus tend to believe that there can be more than one path to the divine, they imagine that all religions are like that. We often tend to believe that our view of religion is the universal view of religion. But this is not the case. All religions don't believe that there is more than one true path. And so, we are at a great disadvantage when we dialogue with people of other religions. We subconsciously impose our assumptions about what a religion is or should be upon them. And as we shall discover in our conversation, some of the differences between Hinduism and Christianity and other religions are quite deep. It does not mean that they can't be bridged, but they are quite deep. And the difference should be recognized for what it is. These are some of the reasons which incline me to carry out that exercise.
What is one of the most important differences, according to you, between Christianity and Hinduism? And what should a Hindu know especially about Christianity?
I think one of the most important differences is that Christians believe that theirs is the only true faith. And from this follow a certain kind of theology, a certain kind of psychology, a certain kind of sociology, a certain kind of philosophy. So this, I think, is the single most important thing Hindus should realize about Christianity. That it regards itself as the only, and we might say, and it is more accommodating, ultimately valid path to the divine.
Why should especially a Hindu care in one way or another? You touched on it obviously about Christianity. Now, as you just said, it is a very specific religion when it comes to Christianity. It follows really as it says, and it's also from where certain type of scientific inquiry also comes. It's very narrow, and from that point of view, obviously, it's very different, but there are also a lot of similarities. Can you elaborate on these similarities between Christianity and Hinduism, especially for Hindus?
Well, there are striking similarities. In Hinduism also, you can believe that your path is the only true path for you. For you. The real difference between Hinduism and Christianity is not just that you believe in one true religion, but that you believe that it is the one true religion for everybody. Not just for me, or not just for my community, but for the whole world. So that's what the real difference is.
So it is more individualistic in that sense that Hinduism can be accommodated in this regard, whereas Christianity, it is closed in this sense.
Well, you can put it the opposite way. You can say that Christianity is universalistic because it's had its message for everyone. And Hinduism is individualistic because it says that each person can have his or her unique path. So the proposition can also be reversed.
What also struck me that at the very beginning, also from the book, that you said, and you touched on this, religion has a negative connotation. But you stated very clearly that it does much less harm to know about a religion or about religions than not.
Yes, I said something about that in the beginning also, that ignorance in the context of religions is not benign or neutral ignorance. For instance, there has been enough talk about terrorism and of the people who practice that being often Muslims for the impression to prevail in the common mind that terrorism has to be associated with Islam. So when the word Islam is uttered, you would immediately think of terrorism. Or Hinduism may have been represented, and the Hindus would think misrepresented, as a religion which upholds social inequality. And this impression may have become so broad-based because it has not been countered that when you take the word Hindu or Hinduism, the next thought in the other person's mind will be inegalitarianism. No one is to be blamed for this, in a sense, specifically. So this is what I mean by saying that ignorance is not benign ignorance in the modern world.
Mhm. You also said that it is in their lived expression, for example, dogma or practice, in which the two mainly differ, according to you. Please elaborate further.
Yeah. So this is an important point. If you want to become a Christian, what do? You undergo baptism of some kind, usually, which is accompanied by a creedal formulation of Christianity. Some form of Jesus is the ultimate savior or the Son of God.
Mhm.
This is what we call dogma. Having accepted that dogma, then you practice your religion. You should love your neighbor as Jesus preached. And so love the stranger. Return evil with good. Now, in the case of Abrahamic religions, the acceptance of the creed is crucial for defining membership. Or it is the key element in your membership. I'm not saying these religions are restricted to dogma. I'm saying that you have to accept the dogma to be considered a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew. And then, of course, practice follows. And once you have accepted the dogma, you will be judged on the level of your practice. So I'm not saying that practice is totally ignored. But the difference is that when we come to especially Hinduism has this broad acceptance that there can be many creedal formulations. You can believe in one God, two gods, many gods, no God. And so people will say, fine, this is what you believe, but they will judge you. Not in terms of your dogma, but in terms of your practice. So this is what I meant by the relative positioning of dogma and practice. Now we have a very striking illustration of this from the life of Mahatma Gandhi. For a while, Mahatma Gandhi collaborated with some very prominent Muslims in a joint political campaign. At the end of this campaign, one of the Muslim leaders was asked, how do you compare Mahatma Gandhi to a Muslim? And he said, a Muslim is more acceptable to me, no matter how his lifestyle. If he's a Muslim, I love him. Then a Gandhi, no matter how pious he may be. And he was, it seems, might even seem mildly offensive to us, that such a statement would be made about a person like Mahatma Gandhi. But this is the correct theological position. I mean, the orthodox point. This is what I meant, the difference between dogma and practice. Now, can you see more in support of this, that the concept of religious identity in India is not confined to exclusive religious identity. You can say in India, I am a Hindu, or only a Hindu, or a Buddhist, or a Jain, or a Sikh, or a follower of Adi Dharma, or tribal religions. But there are also Indians who say that I am both a Hindu and Buddhist, and or a Sikh, or Jain, and vice versa. By India, I mean the Indian subcontinent, including Nepal. What does it indicate? That religious identity is less important than religious behavior. You can claim to belong to one religion, two religions, nobody is offended. But if you break the basic moral rules which are shared by these religions, then you lose your credibility as representing that religion.
There are many similarities between Christianity and Hinduism. And you also mentioned Gandhi and Jesus. Give us some examples how they might, one way or another, be similar.
Yeah, the point, there are a couple of points at which they meet. One of them is that when you go to the devotional forms of Hinduism and compare them with Christianity, then they come very close. Because even in Hinduism, when you come to the devotional literature, sometimes you might feel that I can only really be devoted to one god of these many gods in the Hindu pantheon, Shiva or Vishnu, or an incarnation of Vishnu like Ram or Krishna. That he or that god or goddess is the sole focus of your attention. So although philosophically you may not subscribe to this position, pragmatically you will be subscribing to it, which is the dogmatic position in Christianity. But you come very close. I believe in Jesus. Jesus will save me. I believe in Shiva or Vishnu. They will save me. So this is one sphere. The other is ethics. And you'll be surprised that a scholar of Islam, very famous scholar called Al-Biruni, some have described him as the greatest scholar in history. He wrote a book called Al-Biruni, in translation known as Al-Biruni's India. It's a survey of Indian culture. When it comes to Hindu ethics, he says that ethics is the same as that of the Christians. You turn evil with good. And when Mahatma Gandhi says that the Sermon on the Mount went straight to his heart, in the very first reading, it was this teaching to return evil with good. Which might have affected you.
What did you enjoy most writing the book Christianity for Hindus?
There are a couple of things. One which I really enjoyed in the sense of feeling that it was a very good thing to bring to the attention of the Hindu, enjoy in that sense. That the way most Hindus encounter Christianity in India is in the following form: that the Christian wants to convert me to his or her religion. This is the impression I had when I was growing up in India, mainly about Christianity. This is the impression Mahatma Gandhi had about Christianity in India. Maybe because India was seen as a mission field, especially during the British Empire, by many churches. And so this is the primary impression which most Indians carry about Christianity. It was therefore very interesting for me to have to point out two things. First, that this is not the whole of Christianity. This is evangelical Christianity. There is also liberal Christianity. After all, I went through a theological school to obtain my degree in theological study and continued to interact with it while I was at the university. But no one ever asked me to convert to Christian. I took classes in the Bible, in church history, in the social gospel of Christianity. I interacted freely with other Christians and with ministers. So here's my personal testimony that all Christianity does not have to be evangelical. There is such a thing as liberal Christianity. Perhaps we don't have enough of it in India. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I have been moving in the wrong circles. Okay? So this was one thing. But even more important than that was to point out that when the Christian asks you to convert, although you might feel that this is a very supercilious attitude, right? You don't have the true religion. I have the true religion. Without it, you will rot in hell. With it, you will be saved. There's a certain measure of, you can read a certain measure of condescension in this whole attitude that I am here to convert you. However, if you look at it from a Christian point of view, it could be an overflow of a more positive sentiment. That is love. If you feel that you have found the answer to life's problem in Christianity, and it works for you and for community, would you not want to share it with others? Now, this can be easily corrupted through power, self-interest. But one cannot deny that if the approach is based on the attitude I described, then even if you don't want to change your religion, it is not an attitude which you must naturally detest. You can politely say that I am happy with my own religion. And you need not follow up on that any further. So it was important to point this out, that the motive for trying to convert others can be a very sincere thing. And Yannick, let me ask you, Suppose we are now we're discussing these issues of life, of the spiritual life, ultimate reality. Suppose you and I conclude that we have arrived at the answer. We have cracked the cosmic code. We know what the answer is. Do you think we'll be able to keep it to ourselves? We do not want to proclaim it. Look, we have the answer. Such a natural thing. After all, the Buddha, after he had the final insight, wanted to share it. Ultimately decided to. So, it is possible to, or maybe I would say it is even necessary, to take this perspective into account to form a balanced view of this aspect of Christianity.
It's very impressive how you're able to formulate this and to give so many different perspectives on really the Christian way, as it can be perceived very much offensive, but also this ability that you have to actually look at from a different perspective and actually see, well, if you look at it this way, it can actually be a compliment. But obviously, as you said, the problem often what happens with human beings is that things get corrupted, and I think that's a very interesting question too, that if you think really, or that you found the answer, it is kind of tricky too to go then out and actually proclaim it.
So it's such a natural thing
Mhm.
to want to share it. Now, we will see the very interesting sequel to this, which is that when Indians started feeling that they have the answer, that all religions are true. The person who formulated this in a major way went all the way to America to proclaim it. He was not saying mine is the only true religion, you must follow it. But he was saying this probably is the correct attitude to have towards other religions. Please accept it, or at least consider it. So structurally, once you have an ennobling insight, a sublime insight, whether it is of the kind which might be considered narrow, follow my religion, or more broad-based, you can follow any religion. But once you are inspired by that insight, then your behavior really displays a similar pattern to a point, of course.
What makes you feel alive?
Well, I think life, the phenomenon of life, is endlessly intriguing. What is all this? What are you doing here? And what responses to these questions have people come up with? In past ages, in our times, in different regions, in the various ideologies. I think it'll be quite exciting.
Arvind Sharma, thank you so much for your time and your insight and wisdom. to make us somehow a little bit more wise. Listening to you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss these matters.
Arvind Sharma. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I would like to ask you maybe, we can cut this in and we can use this for different things. I think very interesting if you have something. And another one, what what do you consider most important for a human being to know or discover during his or her lifetime?
The most interesting thing, important thing to discover is, I think, the various answers which people have come up with to this question. The most important thing to know is who you are.
And who are you?
Meaning who I am, to ask this question. This question is regarded in mysticism as one of the great questions. That the real mystery you have to probe is your own.
Is it still a mystery to you regarding to your own life?
Yes, but it's the kind of mystery in which is not disorienting. The mystery usually has this connotation of something which might disorient you. It's too mysterious for me to study or go into and all. This is the kind of mystery which draws you in. And if you were asking me as to what progress one will make or one has made in this, then I think the best example I can give is that of a sheriff who has been tasked for tracking some crime or some happening. And he has got some clues and he's working on them. And the sheriff can say, I don't have the answer to the mystery, but I feel I'm getting closer to solving it as I get these clues, try to connect.
Do you consider yourself spiritual or religious?
Well, it will depend on how we define these terms. But nowadays, of course, there is this very interesting category of people who call themselves spiritual, but not religious. And I think there they have a special meaning of religion in mind. Religion is an organized system, like Christianity, Islam, where you have a church, or something which corresponds to it. You have some rules to follow, and it's all laid down. The spiritual search is more open-ended. You do not know where it might lead you to. When you call yourself spiritual, you throw yourself open to that possibility. And in that case, yes, I'd call myself spiritual rather. We should not undervalue the role of religion, quote unquote, in life. I have known people who have said to me that it is only after somebody died in the family that they realize the role of it. It tells you how to move, how to breathe, how to get over it. It has the experience of ages behind it. Or when people have special personal tragedy, they are able to deal with it because of the resources which have been provided to them by the so-called organizations.
I think what oftentimes also gets missed is that it can really prepare oneself for this journey of life, especially when it comes towards death or dying.
Yes. It is a great mystery. Yeah. And religion deals with mystery, the ultimate mystery of God, our life. So that is a great challenge. It provides, different religions provide a framework for dealing with the unknown. So the great thing about religion is that they openly acknowledge that there is the unknown. But that one need not necessarily be afraid.
The older you get, do you feel that you experience life more and more fully and meaningfully and purposefully? Or how do you experience if you look back? Now, I know that you are already.
I think personal growth consists precisely in what you are saying, being able to live life more meaningfully, in a more positive way, in a wiser way. When we set such store by experience, what we are really saying that it provides us ways of connecting dots, which are more meaningful, positive, even felicitous than what was available to us in our earlier life.
What's your very first thing when you wake up in the morning that you do, that you look forward to?
Just the next day. See, every day, it's almost like it's unfolding. Certain things, of course, happen by way of routine, but there are different news items every day. You meet sometimes different people, or the same people displaying different dimensions of their personality. It's a kind of a perpetual play.
Do you think that you played it so far up to now well?
It depends on the role we visualize ourselves as playing in. If we see ourselves as a character, then there is hardly any role for judgment. If you are given a role in a play, even of a murder, you don't apply the criterion of moral judgment. That is the role you have to do. So that is one way of looking at it. As a participant in this drama. If you define your role to be somebody who judges, as a judge in the drama, then you pass judgments. So it's a kind of role we perceive ourselves as playing in that role.
Professor Arvind Sharma, thank you so much for your time and timeless wisdom.
And thanks for taking the time and making the effort to come all the way to Montreal and to provide this opportunity for us to interact.
Arvind Sharma.
That's why knowledge